featuring the very best contemporary artists. The BBC Radio 3 Awards for World Music, The Sounds of Planet Earth. Thursday at 7:30 on Radio 3 and on Friday at 9 o'clock on BBC 4.
This is BBC One. Now, the news with Fiona Bruce.
Coalition troops push deeper into Iraq. They say they're now halfway to Baghdad. Iraq's second city, Basra, is reported secured, but after fierce fighting, another key town under coalition control as troops head north to the capital. Baghdad is under renewed bombing, so far not as heavy as before. And thousands of people have gathered across the UK to protest against the war. Good evening. British and American troops are driving deeper into Iraq tonight. They've encountered fierce fighting in a number of towns and cities, but are now said to be within 200 miles of the capital, Baghdad, and are pushing forward. This is where today's key battles took place. Coalition soldiers reached Iraq's second city, Basra, and they entered the port town of Qasr. But they met pockets of fierce Iraqi resistance there. Further north, en route to Baghdad, US-led forces say they've secured the strategically important town of Nasiriyah. But again, there was heavy fighting. We've a report from there in just a moment. But first, Ben Brown on the battle for Basra and Qasr.
Relentlessly, British and American forces are rolling towards Basra, Iraq's second city, a major prize before the biggest of them all, Baghdad. The Allied troops have come here to get rid of Saddam Hussein, even if it's only his picture. Very soon, they believe, they'll be bringing down the man himself. More and more of Iraq is now in the hands of the Allies. Places like the poor and dusty settlement of Safwan. Here, there's quiet delight that people are now living in a post-Saddam world.
Very happy to get Saddam Hussein.
We've been waiting a long time to get rid of Saddam Hussein, says this man. It's good to see him go. Before he falls from power, Saddam has ordered the destruction of Iraq's oil wells, the country's most precious asset. So far, though, only a handful have been ignited and far fewer than had been feared. Today, we flew in with the RAF to the southern Iraqi port of Qasr. There's been fierce fighting here between US Marines and Iraqi troops. But now the Americans chat casually, right in front of Saddam Hussein. They say they're in charge here, though a few of his soldiers disagree and they're still holding out. American and British commanders say they are now in control of Qasr, but it hasn't been quick and it hasn't been easy. There are still isolated pockets of Iraqi resistance, and opposition from Iraqi troops in this town has been much more ferocious than had been expected. And the Marines told me some Iraqi soldiers are now pretending to be civilians.
There is a little bit more resistance than we've expected, and there are also some fanatics who will remove their uniforms and become masquerade as civilians and still shoot at us.
Is that pretty dangerous for you guys?
It's always dangerous. Dangerous for you as well.
An armada of dinghies appears in the port. They're British Royal Marine Commandos ferrying in a human cargo, dozens of captured Iraqis. For these men, the war is over, almost before it's begun. They're lined up on the beach of Qasr, a sad, bedraggled bunch with no shoes and hands tied behind their backs. The wounded get treatment by Royal Marine medical teams. Not far from here, more Iraqi prisoners are guarded by the Royal Irish Regiment. British troops seem to look after them well, feeding them with self-heating army ration packs.
Well, the prisoners have been placed into a holding area. So far they've been given water, and they've also been given rations. And they'll be given this throughout the day as well.
So the collapse of the Iraqi army has begun, but these troops in the south are mainly conscripts. Nearer Baghdad, they're much tougher, and it may be a different story. Ben Brown, BBC News, Southern Iraq.
Since the beginning of the war, our correspondent Gavin Hewitt has been with the US 3rd Infantry Division. Today, after fierce fighting, they've secured the key southern town of Nasiriyah. He's just sent us this report.
The battle for Nasiriyah began yesterday afternoon with the Americans firing salvos of rockets towards Iraqi forces. The Americans pushed their tanks to within 7 kilometers of the city, but despite a strong bombardment, Iraqi regular troops refused to give up. During the night, Bravo Company 269 Armour broke away to attack the nearby airbase at Talil. They called in powerful airstrikes before moving in. By first light, the troops were searching the base. There were skirmishes, but most of the Iraqis had faded away. The airbase was a warren of bunkers, and tanks were used to open sealed doors. It was thought that this might be a hiding place for weapons of mass destruction, but nothing was found here. This morning, the battle around Nasiriyah was rejoined with tank busters being used to attack Iraqi armor.
There hasn't been a large capitulation. It's been small pockets of fighting that are dealt with quickly and efficiently.
Today, American troops were able to secure the vital bridges across the Euphrates. Here on the outskirts of Nasiriyah, American forces have parked their tanks right in front of an image of Saddam Hussein. They are still meeting some resistance from Iraqi forces, but they expect to have the city under total control within 24 hours. The Americans insist they are meeting their targets. That is mainly due to the speed.
I think the house needs some more